Good evening, everybody. The Music Fan is back, bringing smiles to the faces, knowledge to the people, and most importantly, music to the masses. Back with another Are You In? Last time, we had a pretty long and pretty in-depth discussion on the latest album from Avenged Sevenfold. So I thought, why not go with something a little bit shorter, a little bit simpler, and a little bit more energetic. This time around, we're going to take a look at the newest album from Disclosure entitled Alchemy. Now, this is the fourth studio album from English electronica duo Disclosure. This is a brother tandem, Howard and Guy Lawrence, and their previous albums include Settle in 2013, Caracal in 2015, and Energy in 2020. I'm going to start off by saying that I'm not necessarily the most well-versed in electronica. I've listened to a few projects over the last decade that I've really enjoyed. Some of them being Nicholas Jar, as well as Against All Logic. I also really like Bonobo, and I have enjoyed some more mainstream stuff like Zed, Avicii, and a little bit of Skrillex at times, as well as Ratatat. I can't necessarily say particular albums that I have really enjoyed. I've definitely liked bits and pieces of all of their work. But if I was to cite my favorite of these albums from this genre, Settle has to be up there. It is one of my favorite albums of the 2010s. There's just so much energy, so many great songs. Even though the album is pushing close to an hour, it doesn't feel like it overstays its welcome. Starting off with songs like When a Fire Starts to Burn, Latch, and Fool for You just sets the scene so well for the energy for the rest of the album. Ever since I've tried to listen to all their other stuff, I don't remember Caracal that well from 2015, but also 2015 was kind of a weird year for me where I wasn't listening to a lot of music. Energy, though, from 2020 was a lot of fun, brought me back into really enjoying them again. I don't remember if it made my top 50, but it was pretty close if it didn't. When I found out of nowhere that they dropped another album, I was really stoked. And I did a little bit of background look into this particular album to see that between Energy and Alchemy, a few things has happened to the duo. First off, they were able to get out of their contract with the major record label that they were working with, so now they are independent and are able to do what they want to do. So this album is a little bit of a celebration about that. However, during this time, Guy Lawrence also got married, and after a pretty extensive tour, Howard went back to London and wrote a lot of these songs in that headspace, being exhausted from touring, but also dealing with heartbreak. Because from what I understand, his brother and longtime partner now has this other person in his life that is also a big commitment. A lot of this album seems to be coming from the view of being lonely and looking for love in that special person. The issue here for me, just to start off, is it's kind of ambiguous as what side it's coming from. I'm not sure if a lot of this album is coming from Guy Lawrence's perspective of finding the love of his life and writing songs in that headspace of, trying to find that love and then finding it and holding on to it, or if it's Howard trying to fill that hole in his life of trying to look for someone to love. The other part that's a little bit tricky with this album too, just from a conceptual idea, I like the more organic idea around it. It seems like this whole entire album, 11 tracks, 37 minutes, is based around one whole day. It seems like you get the starting point for Looking for Love, where it's happening, it sounds like at an airport, so it seems like it's coming right after leaving back to London after the tour. And throughout this, you get bits and pieces of atmosphere, of world building, right? So there are parts in here where you feel like you're with I'm going to guess Howard at this time. It happens more at the end when it sounds like someone got home, they're out running or out walking the dog, then they come back and they're driving in the car and they put on the radio and a song comes on. Particularly, it is Brown Eyes. And then there's the part afterwards where the person stops the tape, gets out of the car, and starts talking on the phone with somebody. I like these world building ideas. However, it feels a little bit too nebulous to be like, what exactly is going on here? Whose perspective are we following at this time? So those are my like macro issues. Other than that, though, I do enjoy a decent amount of these songs. Starting off with Looking for Love. Love how this just fits the vibe immediately. This is one of my favorite songs I've heard all year. The melody is one of my favorite melodies of the year. I'm looking for love from everybody right now. I got this hole here in my heart. Left me drowning at the bottom and I don't know how to come back up. It's so great. I love the vibe of this song. The melody is just so great, and I love the skips in the intervals to make this just feel like such a great melody to just listen to front to back every single time. The arrangement feels a little bit more like late 90s, early 2000s with the booming bass and the drums. The drum fills get a little bit weird at times exactly where they're coming in, because it comes in like not necessarily right at the end of the phrases, but like a little bit afterwards where it's like, oh, well, that drum's there. But it doesn't bother me because everything else on this song is just phenomenal. And I think the best songs on here are the ones with the great melodies. A Little Bit is another one of them, another great vocal melody, and I love how there's this like give and take with the arrangement versus the melody. You start off pretty softly in terms of just like background music, other than the I said maybe we're a little bit in love. The drums come in, you get this offbeat synthesizer piano, very staccato chord progression. It builds nicely. There's not like complete whiplash of dynamics. Meanwhile, though, while you have these vocal lines come in, the arrangement feels atmospheric. It feels legato. It feels like it's going to move into that staccato part afterwards. I also really like the right now, meet me in the middle melody there as well. So much great give and take and building throughout this song that makes it, again, another highlight on this album. And honestly, the last song on the album to me also is a highlight. Talk on the Phone, it reminds me of Looking for Love, which makes sense because there is a little ad-lib of Looking for Love and a response vocal on this song. But what works, again, is it's a great melody, great harmonies on the Talk on the Phone part. I like how this kind of does well with resolving the ending of this album. Looking for Love, talking about, of course, trying to find something to fill the hole. A Little Bit is trying to figure out exactly where you are with somebody. It's like, maybe we're in love, but I don't know. Can you meet me in the middle? Let me know what's going on. And then Talk on the Phone is this song which seems to be about having that person in your life, and maybe it's not like fully there yet, but having that person that you want to talk on the phone all the time, and when there's issues, to communicate about it. I really enjoyed the beautiful breakdown with the lovely strum guitar chords as you get this great breakdown melody before building up to, again, another great chorus that just layers so well. All three of these songs, great songs to listen to. Never really truly overstay their welcome. And when they are on, even if it's a little bit longer, there are enough parts here that are super interesting. With Looking for Love and A Little Bit being some of the first two songs on this album, I was like, cool, they're back at it. This is going to be great listen, especially with the way Looking for Love just like kicks off the album. Was hoping for a lot more of that vibe. That being said, though, there are a few of these songs that feel like they kind of overstay their welcome. Simply Don't Do kind of continues that vibe of that like late 90s, early 2000s vibe previously from Looking for Love, but it's more stagnant in the chord progression. It makes it up for it in different ways. Particularly, there is a more complex moving bass line, and the melody is a little bit faster and a little bit more calm response. It comes at you fast and leaves you. However, because of that, it does feel a little bit gibberish at times. It's not like a song that you need to particularly listen to the lyrics because they're repeating the same thing over and over again. But I will say it kind of just like comes and goes and be like, what the heck did they just say? The arrangement definitely takes more of the forefront of this song, but because of that, and because the melody isn't like as prominent, it does feel a little bit too long at times. Though I will say with the breakdown where everything quiets down before building back up is a great way of adding some more depth to this song. Higher Than Before has definitely this drum bass approach, especially when like the staggers and stops come in. It feels a little bit more atmospheric. The chord progression is nice and jazzy, which complements the vocal lines. But again, this is a song that doesn't really have much in depth when it comes to vocal lines on the higher than ever before, causing the arrangement to carry the weight. And this one doesn't have really much more in the middle to be more than just a vibe for like 4 minutes that, you know, doesn't build much more than that. Go to Distance. This is probably the song on here that feels the most like it could have been on Settle in terms of like the arrangement's energy, as well as kind of honestly the melody. I feel like this melody, or at least the person singing it, feels very similar to something I would have heard on Settle. The highlight of the song is the energy and the bounciness. It does have this like fast-paced melody that makes you want to keep up with it. However, unlike the rest of these songs so far, this feels a little bit bare bones because the chord progression really isn't there. The drum layering and the bass notes, great. I love how these drums build up. But with that chord progression not really keeping this song engaging, it does get a little bit repetitive. Sun Showers, a pretty meditative song with these echo effects that happen while you have this like moving bass line. I like the contrast of these sounds. There's also enough give and take with the drum and vocal parts to keep the song feeling too repetitive, but because there is only these two chords interchanging, you're not really getting much more in terms of that chordal movement. I like the vibe enough where it doesn't bother me, but I definitely could see it not being a song that just continuously is something that I want to go back to, because it does have that stagnation a little bit. And Brown Eyes, the issue for me with this one is that it does end abruptly, but I do enjoy what is there as you tune into that radio idea, right? When the song slowly comes into view, I do like the approach there. Great energy, great jazz chord progression, but too short, and it reminds me a little bit. So it does feel like an idea that we've already hashed out here. Now, other than a couple of interludes, Someday being a short and sweet vocal interlude with some beautiful jazz melodies and harmonies, kind of feels a little bit like a barbershop quartet, a little bit with the harmonies there. And Purify being this more open atmospheric arrangement leading into Brown Eyes and gets you from the transition of being outside to getting into the car. We do have one other song that just doesn't really do much for me, and that is We Were in Love. Love this opening percussive idea, and I really enjoy the layering of the drums throughout this song. This one probably has the most interesting percussive ideas. It feels really fast when it starts, especially with the chords going on. But as you add these other offbeat ideas, you eventually get this drum that feels halftime, that makes you realize, oh, the beat's actually a lot slower than you really think it is. I like how these drum parts work together. There's at least enough there. However, this is, I believe, the longest song on the album, and when the only thing in terms of voice that comes in is this whispered, "We were in love," it really doesn't do much, especially because it keeps cycling. Like, you get to the end point of this grand crescendo of ideas and dynamics, and then it goes back into the beginning idea again, which is fine the second time around, but once it happens the third time, you realize that this feels a little bit too long and just a little bit overstaying its welcome. So all in all, this is kind of a mixed bag for me. There are definitely some songs on here like A Little Bit in Love, as well as Looking for Love, that will definitely be on repeat for me when it comes to Disclosure songs. And I think there's enough of these songs on here that are interesting without being repetitive, but that fine line for me kind of depends on where my state of mind is at when it comes to listening to this album. And also, again, I feel very weird about the overall flow of this album. I'm going to say, like, the first couple of times after Talk on the Phone happens, I honestly didn't realize that the album had ended. I just felt like it ended kind of abruptly because even though it's a good closing song, it doesn't really give the energy off of, hey, we are ending this album. It's not this grand finale. It's hey, this is the end of this day. There we are. So for me, I'm going to have to give it a pick and choose. Of course, I'm going to throw in Looking for Love a little bit and Talk on the Phone. And to round it, I would go with Go the Distance and Sun Showers. 5 solid songs. Not to say that the others aren't listenable, but I would say it has to depend on my mood. It's a short enough album where I wouldn't be like, no, you shouldn't listen to this whole entire album. I think there's enough there where you could get enough out of a one listen, short listen. If you've been really missing Disclosure and you need a little bit of them in your life right now, all to you. I would definitely go back to Settle and Energy before I go back to this one, but I still enjoyed most of it at this point. With now 4 or 5 listens into this, I wouldn't come back to a decent amount of these songs, and I wouldn't really go back and listen to the whole thing through. Now I know that it's a little bit ambiguous, the whole entire flow of this. So still some good stuff. I think probably Looking for Love or A Little Bit will make my top 50 songs of the year. So at least there's that. So thank you for listening to my thoughts on this album. And as a reward, let's talk about my 95th favorite album from 2022. And that is Backwash with His Happiness Shall Come First, Even Though We Are Suffering. This is probably my 3rd time listening to Backwash, I want to say. I enjoyed the 2021 album I Lie Here Buried With My Rings and Dresses. There was definitely some stuff on there where I think it got into my top 75 or my honorable mentions area. So to hear that they were putting out an album so quickly afterwards, that was really interesting. And it was still a great time. Now, to be fair, this is an artist that puts together some jarring ideas. Rap and industrial, more towards that eerie horror sense. So it's going to make you feel uncomfortable. But that being said, there are some damn good songs on this album. Vibanda, love the flow on this, especially the chorus. A lot of anger on here, a lot of questions. There's a song here with Pupil Slicer. Don't worry, we will definitely be talking about Pupil Slicer at some point. They put out a new album in 2023, and I have to talk about that soon. Their song with Backwash Nayama is also great. Really enjoy the melding of voices on Zigolo with censored dialogue and sadistic starting this song before Backwash just killing it on the end with their rap verse. Juju is also another great song with vocals from Gaze Guevara as well as Michael Go. And then, honestly, a very beautiful song at the end. After a very haunting song in Kumoto, talking about what sounds like Backwash having a friend that they use and the friend meeting an unfaithful end. It's very harrowing, but Mukazi actually gives a little bit of hopefulness. It's something that I don't usually hear from Backwash. From what I have heard, there isn't a lot of hope in these songs. A lot of these songs, especially this time around, seems to be coming from the light of religion and how it messes up people and doesn't allow people to be their true selves, especially in Backwash's case, more about the transgender community. There's a lot of hate and anger in these songs. So to hear a song like Mukazi at the end, having a little bit of hope is super cool. And that's kind of where I hope that there is a little bit more hope going forward with Backwash, because this was a really diverse album and one that stuck with me. I don't know if I necessarily like it more than their work in 2021, but it's like right on the same footing, and it just so happens that there was a lot of great albums in 2022. That's why it's a little bit lower on the list comparatively to I Lie Here With My Rings and Dresses. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy this, a few things that you can do. You can give this video a like. You can let me know what you liked and disliked about this new Disclosure album, as well as the Backwash album from 2022. You can share this with your friends if you think that they would enjoy this as much as you do. You can subscribe to this channel. That way I know that you enjoy what I'm doing and want to see videos like this in the future. You can also ring that bell so that way you are up to date on the videos that I'm going to be putting up. And most importantly, let me know other albums from 2023 that you would like me to review. I still have a bunch on my list, but love to hear what you want to hear. So I'll be back with another Are You In shortly. Until then, this is The Music Fan, and I'm signing out.